We have a major Oilers prospect update as the announcement of a familiar fan favorite prospect tournament has returned. Who will we see in that tournament? Who knows exactly? We don't know yet, but I will break down some prospects who we might see in the tournament. Before we get into all of that goodness, let's get into the subscriber count. We just hit 1,300 subscribers. Make sure to join the ride here as we get into the rest of the Oilers summer. Of course, some big news waiting to be named when it comes to, contract extensions, GM being named, many other things, but stay locked here to Oilers Digest as we will cover anything and everything Oilers. If it's breaking, we got it. But let's get right into today's story, the prospect perspective. Yes, I said a annual fan favorite tournament has been announced again, and on Monday morning, the Vancouver Canucks announced the schedule for the annual Young Stars tournament, hosted in Penticton, British Columbia. This is the 11th edition of the 14 tournament, featuring young players from Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, and Winnipeg. Of course, for years, it was just Vancouver, Edmonton, and Calgary, and then Winnipeg joined the fray sooner thereafter. The Oilers are set to play on September 13th against the Canucks, the 14th against the Flames, and lastly the 16th against the Jets. Of course, this is a popular tournament for fans, for scouts, for the media. I know the Oilers, this is their first, sort of exposure of their prospects, of their newly acquired prospects to the fans. Of course, you can see guys don an Oilers jersey for the first time, guys like Taylor Hall, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, to name a few. And it's really exciting because you can see some players sort of gel with their new teammates for the first time, sort of, initiate some chemistry that you might see later on down the road. But let's get right into who we might see. And I know the Oilers, their prospect pool isn't necessarily that strong. Here you can see this headline from the Hockey News for the Oilers prospect pool. At least the Oilers have Matt Savoie, and we'll get into Stephen Ellis. He ranked his top 10 prospects for the Oilers, and he started off his list with the biggest weakness. He says the only player that he feels confident will be an impact everyday player for the Oilers is Matthieu Savoie. He's not completely sold on a guy like Sam O'Reilly, who is the Oilers' 32nd overall selection this year as they traded up into the first round, but his flexibility as a center and winger helps him. Beau Akey, who I'll cover later on, might make it work, but the lost time due to injury this year means he'll be playing catch-up in 2024-25. Beyond that, we're mostly looking at support players. Not always a bad thing, but there truly aren't many pieces worth getting excited about right now. And of course, the prospect pool, not that strong. Jeff Jackson realized that, but he also realized that the Oilers, to bolster the lineup in a win now mode, you kind of have to balance that between keeping the cupboard stocked for moves later on down the road and making sure that you actually have pieces for, in future years. That way the team isn't going into yet another decade of darkness. I know Oiler fans like myself don't want to see that again, but nothing's ever guaranteed, right? So we'll get into Matthieu Savoie here. Stephen Ellis says, what a pickup for the Oilers. I agree, in that trade for Matthieu Savoie. Losing Ryan McLeod, sure, it hurt at the time, but I think it was what they needed to do. They were deep enough already that they could afford to lose a guy like Ryan McLeod, and they now have a top 40 prospect in the NHL, someone with legitimate top 6 potential. He likes Savoie, who at 5'9" is definitely on the smaller side, but his skill level isn't, of course. Reminding you of a guy like Marty St. Louis or Braden Point. Says the first thing that stands out when watching Savoie is his playmaking. Plays the game at a high pace, which means making decisions on the fly under pressure, which reminds you of a guy like Connor McDavid, where he does that with ease. When the game's moving slowly around him, he uses the patience to make the right pass at the right time. For someone who touches the puck as often as Savoie does, we don't see him giving it up often or sending it to someone who isn't ready. He can also destroy you with his quick hands and flashy moves, especially in one-on-one breakaway situations. It'll be interesting to see how the Oilers handle his development, see if they start him out as a winger or if they move him to center right off the bat. But he should spend significant time in Bakersfield, focusing on becoming stronger and allowing him to learn how to beat older, strong competition. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. Matt Savoie, you don't really want to rush him into, a deep Oilers team, and then that's how you sort of kill his confidence. You say you pay a premium to get this guy, and then you don't do anything with him. No, you let him marinate in Bakersfield until it's ready. Of course, you don't want to let him overdevelop in Bakersfield, where it's just at the point where, what are we doing here, right? But let's get into another prospect here. Beau Akey from the Barrie Colts. Again, Stephen Ellis really liked this pick last year because he's expecting a big season from Akey with Brandt Clarke leaving Barrie. Of course, Akey was underneath Brandt Clarke's shadow for the longest time. But Last season, his season was cut short after 14 games, just as he is starting to really show what he's capable of. He's been great in the OHL so far, and think he's a good enough two-way threat to be a long-term option for the Oilers. He's a right-handed defender, which I love. Something the team really needs too is they already have two right-handed defensemen with Evan Bouchard and Cody Ceci, but Cody Ceci could be on his way out. Some people think he could challenge for an Oilers roster spot, not, this season, but the next. But I'd like to see him hone in on his defensive game and become more responsible in his own zone. You can see his stats there. Again, 2022-23, Brant Clark was in the Los Angeles system for half the season, and then after Christmas, after the World Juniors, that's when they sent him back, and, we kind of relegated Beau Akey back to his right-hand man role. But you can see there 47 points in 66 games with Barrie, and then last season, of course, 14 games, only 9 points. So yeah, it will be a bit of a catch-up situation for Beau Akey, but I'm really excited to see what he could potentially bring, not just, with Bakersfield, but with the Oilers, with that right-hand shot. I mean, a guy like that comes at a premium. And then next, you got Matvey Petrov, also he's in Bakersfield after coming from the North Bay Battalion. Of course, lit it up in North Bay, and many were intrigued to see what Petrov could do in his first year pro hockey. I know before he was drafted, he, gained some comparison to a guy like Evgeny Kuznetsov, a shoot-first Russian kind of player. But last year, only finished with just 9 goals and 14 points in 53 games, but mainly played in the bottom 6 and saw next to no power play time. Of course, in North Bay, he was a power play machine. For a high-end junior producer like him, that was definitely a change, but with a little more skill, could see him scoring 15 to 20 next year once he's given more responsibility. He's still young with a little pro experience to his credit, but I don't think he has the puck skills to be a real asset for Bakersfield, or to be a real asset for Bakersfield. His lack of physicality and skating do not help him. You can see the bit of a culture shock there from Matvey Petrov, going from Sovetov Jr. of the Russian Junior League to North Bay. Of course, 98 points in his first North American season, followed by 93, and then into Bakersfield, again, in a lower role, 14 points in, 53 games. So, again, he's 21 years old. Not much you can, expect, a 21, he's Russian. You can't rush a guy like that. But I'm excited to see what he could potentially do. Again, give him more responsibilities, and I was excited for the Oilers when they drafted him. You need a guy like that, with a shoot-first mentality, something the Oilers don't really have. Many times, of course, it's, forwards that, like to do one too many passes for my liking. But Petrov, you don't want to, give up on the guy too soon, then it'll kill his confidence. But, another year in Bakersfield, more responsibilities. Who knows? You might see him on the Oilers next year. And then, lastly here, you got a guy like Eemil Vinni. He was drafted in the second round by the Oilers this year, and Stephen Ellis has this to say about him. His stats might not be special, but it's difficult being a starter in a pro league at 18. Eemil Vinni didn't get a start at the World Juniors, but he's arguably been Finland's best goaltender in the U20 national team competition this year. At 6'2", he has decent size, and fortunately, he isn't overcommitting on shots as much as he was a year ago. Vinny will need a lot of seasoning before becoming an NHLer, but I see potential there in how he commands himself in the crease. I think he's one of those guys we're going to see have a breakout season in Liga, which is the first tier of the Finnish pro hockey system there, before heading to the AHL in Bakersfield and becoming an NHL backup. Of course, the Oilers already have, Olivier Rodrigue in the AHL with the Bakersfield Condors, so seeing that 1-2 punch there next year, unless Olivier Rodrigue makes the jump to the Oilers, who knows, because it'll be exciting to see the Oilers actually have a goalie pipeline, and Finland has been a goalie factory in the past, so I'm very excited. You can see here he was the first ranked international goalie heading into this year's draft, and there was some concern about him when it came to his back surgery. He had back surgery in the offseason. Teams were kind of scared about that, but the Oilers taking a chance. Again, no need to rush these prospects at all, considering who they have now on the main roster. And then just looking at his stats here, phenomenal stats. He was with Jokin Jopat in the Mestis, which is the second tier of the Finnish pro system, I do believe. But again, 18 years old, 272, finishing with a .91. I mean, the sky is the limit for Eemil Vinni, and that's exactly why the Oilers took him in the second round. Of course, goalies, you take a gamble on. They're hard to predict. They're kind of voodoo, but with a second-round pick. The Oilers obviously saw something in the guy that other teams didn't. I know the other teams might have been scared of his injury history, but that wraps up all the prospect talk for today. Let me know down in the comments if you're excited for the annual Young Stars tournament, who you're excited to see for the Oilers for the first time. Are you excited to see Matt Savoie? Are there any prospects that I didn't cover that you're excited about? Let me know down in the comments. Have a great day. I'm Matt.